Welcome to International Student Connect and our webinar today. We're going to be talking about relationship, safety, marriage, and sponsorship. My name is Ingrid and I will be your presenter for today. If you have questions after the webinar, please do feel free to send us an email at rahila.mushtaq@costi.org and we'll respond to your email within 24 to 48 hours. We're going to be talking about relationships and how they relate to marriage and sponsorship today. So, as an international student, one of the pathways to immigration in Canada is through marriage. And in many countries, that is the case. We're speaking specifically to international students because we understand that many international students sometimes are unmarried and may decide that they're going to go this route. And there are a few minor details that you should pay close attention to if this is what you're planning on doing. So on our agenda, we're going to look at marriage, partnerships, and sponsorships. We'll talk about same-sex relationships, sponsorships, and marriage fraud, and also human trafficking. I'm sure you're probably wondering, how does human trafficking tie into marriage and partnerships and sponsorships? Well, you'd be very surprised about some of these things. So that's where we're going to take it today. Now, in Canada, you must be 16 years old to marry. Okay, so no one under the age of 16 is allowed to get married in Canada. The age of majority is 18. So if you're 18 years old, you have the right to marry without permission, but 16 and 17-year-olds need permission from their parents to get married. There are some other rules about consent for marriage as well. So you cannot be forced to marry at any age. I know that in some countries it is customary for young girls to get married at a really young age, sometimes between the ages of 10 and 12. In Canada, that is not the case. You cannot be tricked into marriage. You have the right to obtain a legal divorce, even if your spouse does not agree with you. And there must be a specific reason for the divorce, and the court must approve. So if you were to get married, and you wanted to get a divorce, absolutely, you should have no issues to do so. It is very common for romantic partners who are not married to live together in Ontario. So this is called cohabitation and differs from a roommate situation. Roommate situation is where you get together, you live together as roommates. Cohabitation involves sexual relations. When a couple lives together for 3 years, they have what is called a common law relationship. So common law status is awarded after 3 years of cohabitation. This means that they're actually considered to be married. In Ontario, common law couples have the same rights as formally married couples, but it is not exactly the same. For example, common law couples do not have the shared property rights. So if you are going to be cohabiting with someone and you've realized that this relationship is working really well, it's going beyond the 3-year mark, you probably should look into the different laws that surrounds common law and cohabitation. And this is for your own benefit in case let's say you have property that is in your name solely. If you are common law couple, there are certain legalities around that. So you kind of want to scope that out and figure out what your options are as a common law couple. Same-sex marriage is legal in all of Canada, and the majority of Canadians support it. In general, Canadian society is also very accepting of the LGBTQ rights, including transgender rights. However, there are still people in Canada who do not accept same-sex relationships and may discriminate against the LGBTQ individuals and are not necessarily tolerant of transgender individuals. We do know that our society has a long way to go to make LGBTQ completely welcome. However, with that being said, and knowing what we know, that there's still discrimination against the LGBTQ community, that there are higher risk of violence and suicide directed towards and within the LGBTQ community. There are many support systems for international students and their partners who are same-sex couples or are in same-sex relationships. There are many organizations that can help. Most campuses in Ontario have one or more LGBTQ student groups and also provide support to students through different programs and offices on campus. So there is a lot of support in that area. Sponsorship and marriage fraud as they relate to each other is something that we wanted to touch on because it is not uncommon for individuals to use marriage to take advantage of Canada's immigration system. When two people marry for immigration purposes, it is called a marriage of convenience, and that is against the law. Individuals who come to Canada in marriage of conveniences can be deported. The Canadian partner can also be charged with fraud under the Criminal Code. Dishonest people can take advantage of someone with uncertain immigration status and use the promise of marriage or sponsorship for some other reasons. Often, the reason is generally financial gain, which could include sex trafficking. Sometimes non-immigrants may be forced to start or stay in relationships in exchange for immigration support. People often think that getting married for sponsorship is a way to beat the system. It's not necessarily a way to beat the system, and sometimes it does not work to your advantage. It's not a quick solution at all. Now, this type of fraud can happen in other ways. Foreign nationals, including international students who are in Canada on temporary visas, may see marriage as a way to stay in Canada. Marriage to common law relationships with a Canadian is one pathway to immigration, but studying at a Canadian college or university is another way to immigration. So that's something that you should really think about. Do not trust anyone who tells you that entering into a relationship is a quick solution to immigration issues. Don't get involved in a false marriage. Immigration Canada will refuse your visa, and they may also ban you from travel to Canada for 5 years. This will stay on your immigration record forever. So it's not that you're only going to be banned from Canada, but with that ban, there will also be information on your file forever related to immigration fraud. IRCC understands that even genuine marriages can fail. But if you enter into a marriage of convenience to come to Canada as an immigrant, the government can take legal action against you. They may not allow you to enter Canada again or for 5 years, and they can legally deport you. So let's just recap and give you some things to remember. In Canada, marriage is your choice. You can live with a partner without being married, so you can cohabit, or you can live in a common law relationship, depending on how long this relationship goes. Same-sex relationships are accepted. We do know that we have a long way to go. However, currently, same-sex relationships are legal. Organizations do provide support for the LGBTQ community. And marriage is not a quick fix for immigration status. Dishonest people may promise immigration support. So keep that in mind, that you may be looking at someone who's saying, yes, I can help you, and you are going to get your immigration status within the next couple months if you marry me. Sometimes there are hidden agendas, and you don't want to get caught in a hidden agenda situation, which leads us into the human trafficking piece of this webinar. What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is recruitment, transportation, and control of people for economic profit. This profit usually comes from forced labor and sexual exploitation. It is considered a form of modern-day slavery, not very easy to get away from. Now, what do traffickers normally do, and how do they go about recruiting people? Well, traffickers lure and trap people into forced labor. They sometimes could use kidnapping to achieve their goal. Um, they use force or coercion to keep victims under their control, and sexually exploit their victims through manipulation so that they can take advantage of their vulnerabilities. Many traffickers will promise relationships that will lead to immigration status. This is something that we have seen. This is something that we know happens. And so this is one of the reasons we are adamantly talking about this, especially to international students who are thinking of transitioning from an international student to a permanent Canadian resident. Who are most at risk? Unfortunately, human trafficking is far more common in Canada than most people realize. So you may be here and you're thinking to yourself, well, this is a very safe country. This couldn't happen here. It could possibly happen right here in Canada, even though we are a very safe um, country. Newcomers to Canada are generally at the highest risk of human trafficking, but many different groups are vulnerable to trafficking, such as homeless people, Indigenous peoples, and runaway teens. Again, under the banner of being an international student, some of this information may not be open to you. It's probably information that you're hearing for the very first time. We want to bring you this information because we want you to be aware that you fall under the vulnerable category for human trafficking. Newcomers may not have local support networks, and they often suffer from financial strain. Not all the time, but it is common that a newcomer, because you're within that scope of getting yourself organized, you're new to the country, perhaps you've come with your own financial resources. However, it is minimal in relation to what you are normally accustomed to or what you need in order to survive here in Canada the way that you used to back home. So due to the financial constraints sometimes, um, newcomers are most vulnerable. Family is often used. They will threaten the safety of your family. And, as a newcomer, you're not really clear on what your rights are. And so sometimes employers will take advantage of that, or very seedy and shady people will decide that I can exploit this person because they are not necessarily clear on what the laws are and what the regulations are. What do traffickers look like? We can say that um, a policeman is often dressed, or a police officer is often dressed in their uniform. So that's really what a police officer would look like. Outside of that uniform, however, you don't know that the person is a police officer if you see them on the street in civilian clothes, right? So when you think about traffickers, you're thinking about think along the very same lines. You don't know who people are. They don't come in any necessary shape, size, and look. So you want to be quite clear on what it is that you're looking at. Traffickers who target newcomers often have the same national, ethnic, or cultural background as their victims. Keep that in mind. You may decide, well, this person is a friend. And so you begin to build trust with them because you're thinking, well, we're from the same background, we're from the same ethnicity, and we have a lot in common. That's how they lure you in. You're probably even in the same age group. Traffickers may promise high paying jobs. Some will offer a loving relationship or some other benefit like immigration, support, either sponsorship or marriage. Please be very wary of these things. It is not uncommon for people to get caught in these scenarios. Okay? How do traffickers take control? Well, it is not difficult. Once you found yourself in the situation, it is definitely not something that is, okay, I'm going to think about this and say, well, this is, within my control. I can get away. Um, Traffickers are master manipulators. Once you become a victim, their victim, they will use fear and abuse to control you. Victims often become fearful and ashamed, which keeps them from trying to get help. If you think about it, someone who has been sexually violated, you lose your humanity through sexual violation. Um, Abuse is another way of getting to you, breaking you down. Psychological or physical abuse. There are different techniques that they use. Sometimes they'll confiscate a passport, travel documents. You will have reduced communication with family members and friends, sometimes no access at all to communication. This is when you are physically confined and you're unable to reach out. Eventually, those, uh, all of that together combined presents psychological strains on the mind and the body, and eventually mentally you just cannot take yourself away from it. So please, once again, think of all the things that we've talked about. And, sometimes you're thinking, well, this person is my friend and they're not going to harm me. But you do see the signs and the symptoms there. You may have friends who you're also seeing these signs with your friends, and you're wondering, well, why is this person no longer reaching out to me? The victims of human trafficking often hide in plain sight. Some victims may be confined by their traffickers, but sometimes they're also controlled in other ways and can be seen in their everyday life. Now, on this slide, there are some signs of a victim of human trafficking. So you'll see perhaps restricted movements, a sex worker who is controlled, unpaid or paid very little. So you've got a friend who they do the work, but they're always saying, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any money. But you work every day, but I don't have any money. Even when you don't know that they have been trafficked, if these are people that you're talking to, this is what begins, you will begin to see this unfolding. If you are a victim and not recognizing that you're a victim, these are some of the things that the traffickers will do. Um, they will take you to and from your location. So wherever it is that you're going, someone always gives you a ride. So you get taken back and forth. Some people will have excess cash. They'll have a lot of money. You will see sex workers who are underage, and you're wondering, why is this person in this line of work? Or if you're a sex worker and a friend of yours have told you, hey, you can make some money. This is how we'll do it. I will go with you. I will do this with you. I'll do that with you. That's how it begins. Work hours are very long. You owe really large debt to this person you cannot pay back. Um, you go out in public with someone, um, generally the trafficker who's out there with you, and the trafficker will speak for you in public. They don't want you to speak because if you open your mouth, they're afraid that you could out them. You could say, well, I'm being kept against my will. I'm being held against my will. So the threats and the control is a form of keeping a trafficked victim in line. Oftentimes, there's also false ID, and the wrong age is given on those identification. You can get more information about this at www.canadiancentre2endhumantrafficking.ca. So www.canadiancentre2endhumantrafficking.ca. Some additional warning signs: the person may be dressed in age inappropriate clothing or clothing that is not appropriate for the time of year or the function. They may suddenly have expensive clothing, purses, shoes, nail services, branding with tattoos of the trafficker's name or symbol. Some may show bruises or other signs of physical abuse, including malnourishment. You look at the person does not look healthy. They don't look like they've had enough to eat. They may lack basic medical services. They may show signs of being physically restrained and fear for their safety or the safety of family members that are perhaps with them or outside of their home currently. There's also mental health signals. Some people will exhibit anxiety. They'll be submissive, act in a fearful, anxious, submissive, or nervous manner, excessive concern about displeasing their partner or their employer. Those are clear signs that you ought to look for. Some may avoid eye contact. They may have visible signs of substance dependency. Some may express fear and intimidation through facial expressions or body language. They may use slang, terminology that is popular within the sex industry or subculture, like daddy or pimp or bottom, things like that. Again, look for these signs. If you yourself are exhibiting these symptoms and you somehow think that, well, I'm not in a bad situation, these are signs that can tell you that this is something you need to get out of. You need to get away from it. Try not to get yourself in it. And if you identify these signs with friends or family members, there is a problem. You need to step in and perhaps try to help them. Another way to identify human traffickers are, while it is very likely that you will be a target of that you could be a target of trafficking, it is better to be alert and prepared. You may or may never be, but always be prepared. Here are some things to watch out for. A vague job advertisement that makes big promises with very few details. Recently, there was a young lady that an advertisement had gone up for a job in a hotel, and this young woman responded to the advertisement, went to the location, and then she has not been heard of since. These are real cases of real people who have disappeared. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they've lost their lives. We don't know if they've been trafficked, if they're being used in the sex trades. So please be very cautious of these things. An online connection who makes veiled threats about your family back home or suggest they may be in danger and offer to help. So you may get a call or someone may reach out to you through your social media to say, hey, something's wrong back home with your family members and I can help you get to them or I can help you to talk to them. Be wary of that. A new boyfriend or a new friend who promises to keep you to help you fast track the immigration process. A girlfriend or boyfriend who suggests they'll marry you to protect your immigration status. Anyone who gets angry when you ask questions. So if, for example, someone's promising you something and you're beginning to ask questions about, well, how does this work? How does that work? How would you be able to protect me through this, or this? And they're getting upset about it. Be very leery of that. If someone is angry because you're asking questions, it is probably because they do have something to hide. Remember, victims may not realize they have become sex victims. They oftentimes don't recognize that this is what is happening. They may feel as though they have a debt to pay back for things like gifts, drugs, accommodation, recruitment fees, etc. They may have a relationship with their trafficker, so it could be a boyfriend or a friend, a very good friend, could be a girlfriend, a really good friend. They may think they don't need assistance because they have a place to live, food to eat, nice clothes to wear, medical care, and even a paying job. But underneath all of that, if they try to leave, they will be in danger. These are the people who when you think about, something is wrong. They may be taught to distrust and fear the government and law enforcement officers because they are afraid they will get arrested or deported if they're from another country. Some may be intentionally misinformed about their rights, and some may feel that they are being protected from immigration. So these are things to keep at the top of your mind. Remember to trust your instincts always. If it doesn't feel right, chances are it's not right. Ask questions. If you're unsure about an online connection, a new friend, or a romantic partner, or a job advertisement, don't be afraid to ask questions. Your school has many support systems in place that can help you to get through these things. So if you feel uncomfortable, just think about it like, you know what? No, this doesn't feel right to me. And remember that in Ontario, everyone has the same rights to freedom, security, and protection. Do not allow anyone to take advantage of you for their own gain. You cannot lose your legal status in Canada if you report abusive behavior, sexual assault, or criminal activity of any kind to the police. Some people may fear that. No, that is not the case. You will not. If there is immediate danger, or you suspect someone under the age of 18 is being trafficked, or even over the age of 18, please dial 911 or your local police. There are different phone numbers for the local police. If you think someone may be a victim of human trafficking, or you've seen signs of human trafficking, call Ontario's Human Trafficking Helpline for information and support. This helpline is free and it's confidential. The number is 1-833-999-9211. Through the International Student Connect project that brings you this webinar, we have a transition plan on our website. Our website is www.internationalstudentconnect.org, or you can visit us through www.settlement.org, where you will find the transition plan. It's a tool that helps you keep track of the tasks, and schedules, deadlines, things that you're going to need to keep track. Using the ISC resources and checklists available on the ISC website, you can identify all the things you need to do and add them to your own personalized plan. You may need to plan and set goals for a short-term stay, a full program, or even transition to permanent residence after graduation. Whether you need to arrange for healthcare provider, get a social insurance number, apply for a bursary, or make arrangements for summer housing, the transition plan can help you stay on track. So please do visit our website. Again, it's www.internationalstudentconnect.org. And there you will find additional information on various different topics. You can also find information on our different webinars that we have. This project, International Student Connect, is brought to you. We are funded by the Government of Ontario, and it is a bilingual program. It was designed to support international students and their family members. Costi Immigrant Services coordinates this program, and I work at Costi Immigrant Services as the coordinator of the International Student Connect project. We are a multicultural agency that serves over 39,000 clients annually from our 17 locations across the Greater Toronto Area. If you would like to contact the International Student Connect project, please do feel free to do so. You may call us at 1-844-871-4567, or you can email us at isc@costi.org. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. Remember, if you have questions, if you're concerned, do not hesitate. You can call us or you can email us. Please do feel free to do so, either at isc@costi.org, or if it is related to this webinar, please do feel free to contact us at rahila.mushtaq@costi.org. That's the information that you will find for the webinar. Thank you once again, and have a great day.